Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the show that shares with you everything that should be done before walking down the aisle and taking your nuptials. This is Before I Do. For those of you that are single, engaged, don't know if you want to be married, not sure, but you're out here living your best life, we are here to facilitate courageous conversations on dating and relationships.
This is an interactive show, so if you have something to say, we want to hear it. So please feel free. When we ask the Speak Now or Forever Hold Your Peace question, put it in the chat area. Tell us your business. It's all right. You can trust us.
Absolutely. Definitely appreciate you all tuning in tonight, and want to start out with a special happy International Women's Day to everyone. March is Women's History Month, and today is actually Women's International History Day. And so want to say happy International Women's Day to everyone. And so we are actually continuing on in our series talking about cornerstone marriages, capstone marriages, and keystone marriages. And tonight we are actually focused on capstone marriages. And Charmaine, when it comes to capstone marriages, it is deemed as very popular amongst millennials who are now entering into that marriage age. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what a capstone marriage is and why it may be popular to that particular demographic.
Absolutely. It reflects pretty much a big shift in how people are getting married, especially over the past 50 years. It's been a tradition, and it's sometimes referred to as a change from cornerstone. Last week, we talked about a cornerstone. We even described how we have a cornerstone. It's like you're building life together, right? Acquiring new experiences, and you're doing that together. But a capstone relationship, whether you're married or just in a relationship, is the same thing. It pretty much was the opposite side of that. It pretty much is the primary distinction between marriages or relationships of the past. Baby boomers tended to, in that generation, if you're born between 1946 and 1967, the goal was to get married young, acquire property, or have children, start a family, those things, and you do it in typically your younger years. Well, millennials, the millennial generation, which are individuals born between like 1981 and 1996, these individuals, they get credit for having introduced the capstone relationship. And a capstone marriage or relationship, it serves as a symbolic achievement of two people or two young adults who have reached a fundamental measure of self, mentality, and asset management and achievement. So pretty much this marriage is a culmination of a lengthy and fruitful transition into adulthood world. So typically these are individuals who, I don't need this relationship to build me and to make me, right? This relationship is not going to build my reputation. It is not going to really be the foundation that describes who I am. No, I'm going to define my own brand. I'm going to do all of these things to build up the me before I commit to becoming a we with anyone.
So the term capstone is actually, again, a construction or a masonry term, and it describes a stone or a block that is the top or the finishing stone in the construction piece. For those of us in contemporary times, this would be the roof. So this would be the completion, the top of the edifice or the structure, and it sits on top of the wall or the structure, and it reflects the strength and integrity of the structure below, and it also serves to reinforce the structure. So it actually has two purposes. So it's not only to complete the overall structure, but it also seeks to reinforce it as well. So it is a part of the strength of that structure, but it is also considered a completion piece of it. And it is the combination of two words, cap, which of course means top or covering, and then you have stone, which is the material. So it is the top stone, it is the covering of the top. In the same way as we look at the parallel when we talk about relationships, just as Charmaine mentioned, when you talk about a capstone marriage, these are two individuals who have gone through their life as adulthood. They have accomplished and achieved some things individually, professionally, and now they see marriage as a part of that process, as opposed to the cornerstone model, where those individuals, as they go into adulthood, they are utilizing marriage as the fundamental foundation of their individual and professional growth, and they're actually doing those things together.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I was going to say, let me interject. You know, you can kind of determine some of these issues when an issue comes up in your relationship.
You can hear.
I know I'm trying to, sugarcoat it, but I think I'm just gonna have to give it to y'all. What straight, no chaser. Pretty much, it's a situation where when a challenge comes up in your relationship, are you asking the following things like, man, I don't know what my life would be without this person. Like, because they've been here since the foundation, right? But a person in a capstone relationship, no, nah, bro. Okay. I had all of my money, I had all of my assets, I had all of my stuff before you got here, right? So this millennial approach and what they created and how they shifted the whole marriage game, it really changed things up because they're saying, no, I need to have my own brand. I need to have my strong sense of identity before I attach myself to another person. And I'm sure there's some benefits to that, but I'm sure there are also some barriers.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, Charmaine, it's very important to remember that a cornerstone marriage is not better than a capstone marriage.
Right.
And a capstone marriage is not better than a cornerstone marriage. And so even when we look at millennials choosing more of capstone marriages and getting married later in life, the emphasis is on building their individual adult lives first before actually incorporating marriage into the equation, because it is also, statistics also show us that divorces are actually lower in capstone marriages than they are in cornerstone marriages. And again, because a lot of those individuals already come into the relationship with a strong sense of self, with knowing who they are and making a cognizant, mature decision of who they are getting into a marriage with and why, and then allowing that gives them a greater chance at resilience in their marriage. As opposed to a cornerstone relationship, those individuals typically are marrying younger or younger in their professional careers. And so we oftentimes will notice that we'll change as we mature, as we grow, as we acquire certain things. And so those particular individuals that subscribe to a cornerstone marriage are more susceptible to divorce as they continue to grow in their marriage. So people that actually subscribe to capstone marriages, they are not postponing marriage because they care about marriage less. They actually are postponing it because they care about marriage more. And they actually want to make sure that they have a strong foundation for marriage. So both cornerstone marriages and capstone marriages have foundations. They just differ on what they are. Whereas in a cornerstone marriage, the foundation is the marriage. In a capstone marriage, the foundation is the strength of the individuals that are within it. So in that particular vein of thought, both cornerstoners and capstoners, they want the same thing. They just have a different methodology as relates to how they achieve it.
I mean, to be honest, in the counseling world, when we have couples who have been who are in a cornerstone marriage, typically most of our work goes into helping them build their individual selves. For example, if for the cornerstone marriages, we find ourselves helping those two individuals build their individual identity, because sometimes it's a very blurred line and they don't have that sense of individuality, right? And then when you have the capstone relationships, we find ourselves really, really, really having to spend a lot of time getting these two strong individuals, while they have a strong foundation and in their individuality and who they are, how do we now get them to come together, right? And to really bring those two individual identities to make this overall personality of their relationship. How do we do that? And sometimes there can be that tug and pull, because I don't need you. So if I don't need you, then where's the medium of how we're going to really create a sense of community?
Absolutely. So with that, we want to get into our first Speak Now question of the night in regard to capstone marriages.
Which is, what are some of the resources / accomplishments you would like to have in place before you get married? Like, what are those things that you would want to have in place? Resources you want to have in place, things you want to do to live your best life before you get married. And the other question is this: what are some of the resources and accomplishments you would like for your partner to have before you come to the marriage. You know, we always hear that. Okay, this is what I want to bring to the table, and this is what I want the other person to bring to the table. So, what is it? What is your expectation and for you? And what is your expectation for your partner?
And Charmaine, you know what's interesting? What's interesting about this question, right, is this is the same question that are also asked by cornerstoners. The difference is that those things don't necessarily have to be accomplished before the marriage takes place, but usually it does have to be a part of that individual's potential or their vision or their goal for themselves. So we utilize that on the cornerstone side to evaluate whether this is a person that we want to enter into a covenant and relationship with. On the capstone side, these are things that I want to make sure that I accomplish before I even entertain the thought of marrying someone. And also I want to make sure that they have accomplished certain things before I come into a relationship with them, because as we get into the benefits and the challenges, I want to make sure that I'm yoked up with an individual that is not riding my coattails or trying to benefit off the accomplishments and things that I've done in my individual life.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to take a quick commercial break. Once again, tonight we're talking about cornerstone relationships. And so be sure to put your answer to our Speak Now question in the chat, and we'll be right back with more Before I Do.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
Welcome back to Before I Do. Tonight we are talking about, do I want a capstone marriage? We talked a little bit about the definition of capstone marriages and identified that millennials, who are the ones that are entering into that marriage zone age now, are preferring capstone marriages over cornerstone marriages. And our Speak Now question of the night, our very first one, was, what are some of the resources or accomplishments you would like to have in place before you get married? And what are some of the resources and accomplishments you would like your partner to have in place before you get married? So if you have a comment or answer to those questions, be sure to put them in the comment section and we will be sure to read those. But talking about some of the benefits of a capstone marriage, it's really interesting, some of the things that we discovered. So one of the benefits of a capstone marriage is the maturity effect. And so older couples, when they get married, the more mature and financially secure they are. And those are two factors that translate into a lower risk of divorce. We know that finances are the top reason usually why divorces take place. And so at an early age, marriages can be at a higher risk of disruption because the spouses are more likely to be based on mistaken expectations. And so young couples may have insufficient self-knowledge and might not be confident about their own or their partner's potential characteristics. And so people who delay marriage, they allocate time to better understand themselves. These individuals also tend to display more adult-like decisions in their marriage, and that's due to a cultivation of tolerance, knowledge, and peace under stress through their individual life experiences. So according to a study, those who get married later, we talked about this earlier, but their percentage of divorce declines, and the data reveals that each supplemental year of the age of the time they get married, it diminishes their chance for divorce by 11%. So because of age, the level of maturity in people's thinking and their behavior, it increases. Therefore, people deliberately and more virtually, and they're more intentional about what they desire from a lifetime relationship as they grow older. So not only do these individuals exhibit more maturity within the relationship, but they are more cognizant of who they are. They have a stronger sense of self, and that allows them to go into their marriage with a greater sense of exactly what they can expect from their partner and what they expect from themselves.
Absolutely. Another benefit of a capstone marriage is that they're unhindered personal pursuits and growth. So again, if I don't have anyone, if I have the earlier years of my life, for example, my 20s and my 30s, to really explore, to self-discover, to mature, as the last benefit is, it allows me to really focus and hone in on my own personal growth and development. So again, these are things that me being able to focus on my personal growth. It really is, it's looked at as a modern thing. It becomes very important to many people who started to put their focus in their careers, as well as their different personalities. It allows them to explore, be adventurous. For example, women who get married early and give birth, they're really often limited to really solely focus in on their personal growth and development because they have responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
You have children, you have to put in most women, you're going to put your children first. And so besides women, men may also have to delay their plans due to obligations. And so that's a benefit to postponing having children, right? Postponing getting married, because when you get married, your partner is their priority. And so it allows you to just really focus on you. You can make it all about you, and that's okay. And pretty much capstone marriages or relationships, they provide space to allow the individual to really explore their personalities, pursue their goals, and to pretty much, delay the marrying process. And individuals who do this, they're not afraid, because the millennials have made this really a part of the macro culture for them. They're not fearful of missing out. So they don't have that fear of missing out, which is great. And so, according to research in Ohio State, it shows that long-term unemployment is a risk factor for divorce. So the more secure you are in your career, then the more easily you can really jump into different changes and shifts as they happen. And it really makes for a confident individual. It makes for home ownership, for stronger parenthoods and situations, as opposed to when you're younger years. Sometimes you're really learning the professional arena. And when these things happen, sometimes it really shakes individuals' confidence.
All right. And lastly, one of the other benefits of a capstone marriage is that it provides greater financial stability. So partners and couples who delay marriage are more likely to have a better combined financial health. Couples getting married later in life typically boast a generous combined income and often have experience with investments, savings, property, and this likely will help them become even more financially sound as they explore combining their assets together. And usually they have the decision of whether they combine their assets together or not. Whereas in a cornerstone relationship, they are building together. And so they are usually so interwoven that it's hard to separate, even if they did want to separate those things, they couldn't, because they built those things together. Whereas in a capstone marriage, you have two individuals who have built up their solo or individual portfolios, and they can make the decision what things they want to combine together and what things that they want to keep separate. And so the higher income also means that it provides flexibility for the couple as it relates to their travel, any other discretionary expenditures that they may want to have. And so couples who step into marriage also have the experience of paying their own way. They're used to functioning, paying their own bills, having their own livelihood. And so they understand how to maintain a household financially. And so they may not necessarily even have to depend on their partner's income when they enter into the marriage. And so hopefully they have a pattern of being consistent and establish some things, a good, strong individual financial management. And this will help them to manage their money in a more principled way.
Last week I mentioned that, with us being in a cornerstone relationship, right, there were some benefits to that. And when I look at the capstone benefits as well, I would absolutely agree that now that we both are more mature, we have kind of gone through these different seasons in our relationship, we are more financially stable, later on in our marriage. And so that has allowed us to do a lot more things, to date a lot more exquisitely, you know, and to go different places, to travel. And so these were some of the things that when we started off in our marriage, we really couldn't afford to do. And so there is some truth to being mature. You know, the older you get, you become more experienced in your job, more confidence in your job. You're able to negotiate better salaries. And so I absolutely can see some connections and the benefits of having a capstone relationship.
Absolutely. A lot of great, strong benefits when it comes to a capstone marriage. And so we want to go into our second Speak Now question of the night, which is, do you know anyone that has a capstone relationship in marriage? And if you do, what are some of the things you notice or wonder about their relationship? And Charmaine, I know that we know a couple of individuals who have some capstone marriages. And one of the things that I wonder actually goes back to the financial piece that we just discussed, as far as what components do they combine together? Do they keep everything separate? And I know this is one of the areas where you and I kind of differ, where, and you make a great point, gender plays a lot into this as well.
Absolutely.
And so for me, I'm of the opinion that if I marry someone, what's yours is mine and what's mine is yours. Like, you should have access to everything that I have, even if I have built it without you. Because if I'm coming into a marriage and relationship with you, then I am saying that I am trusting you with my life. And my financial portfolio is a part of my life. And so I believe that there should be complete transparency and access to everything that I have, that I built before we got married. And there should be complete access and transparency with everything that you have.
And I believe in that transparency, but I don't believe in access, complete access. I have several friends who they're, you know, these are women who they're professionals. They have worked their behinds off. They have had to really prove themselves 10 times over the men in their organizations and companies to get that wage. They had to fight, you know, claw their way to the top. And the bottom line is, there have been some situations where they found that, you know, in the dating arena, that, you know, there are some individuals out there that they're just looking for a woman to live off of. You're not, you know, there's some individuals who are not inspiring to have their own, to gain their own, because unfortunately, sometimes there are some mothers who are also, I don't know, we're kind of modeling that non-example. You're modeling, oh, I'm going to do everything for my son. Are we truly raising some of our boys to be somebody's husband? Or are we truly raising them to believe that a woman is always going to take care of you, nurture you, love you, finance your whole life, your dreams, your this and your that? And so, unfortunately, the dating arena has some men out there like that. And so, you know, women have found that it's important for them to guard their assets and the things that they have, accumulated.
Absolutely. So again, our second Speak Now question of the night is, do you know anyone that has a capstone marriage or relationship? And what are some of the things you notice or wonder about their relationship? We are going to take a really quick commercial break. If you want to put your answer in the chat, go ahead and put it in the comments section. We'll read it and we'll be right back with more before I do. All right, everyone, welcome back to Before I Do. Tonight, we are talking about capstone marriages, the preferred marriages of millennials. And so we just reviewed and talked about some of the benefits of capstone marriages. Now, we want to get into some of the challenges. And so obviously, just like with cornerstone marriage, there are some benefits and some challenges. And with capstone marriages, there are some benefits and challenges as well.
Absolutely. And so the challenges include the first, which is difficulty switching from an individual focus to a couple focus. I mean, if you have been doing the best you that you have possibly been doing in the decade of your with that being said, there's a level of difficulty switching from that individual mindset, that individual focus, going into a couple focus. As far as research shows, as prominent emerging adulthoods goes in the early 20s, being self-focused in life is often viewed as, people think you're self-absorbed and things like that. But the bottom line is, when you have had that I identity for so long, it really makes it a challenge. It can become a challenge to then switch to a we identity. Okay. And so being straightforward, that's where we find ourselves in the counseling world, spending more time helping individuals say less, do less, and that identity in order to transition to the we identity.
Absolutely. All right. So the second challenge when it comes to capstone marriages is that it casts marriage as a transition of loss. And so the focus is more on what you are losing by entering into the union as opposed to what you are gaining. And so marriage is often portrayed as requiring couples to settle down, to give up freedom, and to get serious. And so capstone marriages, they help to reinforce this mentality and can make the union look as if you are losing again more than you are gaining. And so the insinuation is that marriage is a halt to your ambitions, and it stops you from doing what you want and becoming who you need to be. However, love is not an end. It is intended to be a continuous, encouraging, and cultivating encouragement for us to be better and to be more present in the world. One of the things that Danielle and Hassani say, which I think is great, the problem is not with marriage. The problem is that we haven't been doing marriage right. And so part of the things that we even see, the complaints that we hear about cornerstone marriages, is not necessarily indicative of the qualities that cornerstone marriages should embody. You should not be restricted in your marriage. You should not be limited in being able to going back to school and bettering yourself and pursuing some of your individual goals. But those are some of the things that have been done by individuals who are not actually doing the proper work within their marriage. And so even if it is the right time, it can seem like in a capstone marriage that it is the end of a youthful fun rather than the beginning of a grand adult adventure. So viewing marriage as a net loss might make divorce seem more like a net gain when couples experience hard times in a capstone marriage.
Absolutely. And the third is, it can create a third barrier to having a capstone marriage, meaning you are going to delay the marriage process until you have accomplished a lot of your individual pursuits. The third is that it can create a complex romantic relationship history that often really, pretty much you can have a whole list of non-example experiences that you're really basing your thoughts, thinking, actions off of. And so the question becomes, if you've gone through 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades of relationships that have been toxic, non-examples, a lot of drama, then it can be very hard to leave that history, leave all of those mental minutes you experience those things, leave all of that trauma, leave all of that, again, the long list of history, to leave that behind. There is no delete button there is no reset button to reset your memory in your brain. And so now you're bringing all of that relationship baggage into the relationship at a capstone. And this often leads to, it leads to the list. That list that is just a mile long. I ain't putting up with this. I ain't putting up with this. I done been there, done that, and I'm not doing that no more. He gonna have to come with this, or she's gonna have to come with this. And really, that type of thinking can really narrow and box you in, and really limit your relationship options.
Absolutely. And so hopefully you all got a lot out of this conversation about capstone marriages. Once again, this is not a pro or con when it comes to capstone marriages. Last week was not a pro or con when it comes to cornerstone marriages. So just wanting you all to make sure you have all of the information to make a good informed decision. And so very fascinating looking at both of these from that perspective with capstone marriages, it makes a lot of sense, even when you think about it from a generational level as well. You talked about baby boomers. And again, those individuals who subscribe to a cornerstone marriage, I thought about it from the standpoint of women's rights and how a lot of them were limited in their opportunities because of the way that our society was set up and governed. And so cornerstone was essentially all that was available to them. And so a lot of the children of those baby boomers and children of those generations, which we actually are, we're Generation X. So we were the ones that begin to have this whole notion of learning how to cultivate ourselves individually and have opportunities that were available for us as both men and women. And of course, our children are fully immersed in this idea of, no, I want to live my life. I want to establish myself as an individual. And if marriage is a part of that, then it will be seen as a part of or a piece of the puzzle, not the primary foundation or the base of it. And so it is something that we're going to definitely keep in mind as we move forward in our society and in our world.
I mean, we did it. I mean, we pretty much trained our children that, hey, go to school, make sure you build yourself up, get an education we pretty much encourage that. And I will admit, our mothers encourage the women in my family encouraged me, get your education. They did not want us to feel like we were slaves to marriages that would not fulfill us and that would not fulfill us, that would not encourage us, and that would most importantly not limit us in what we were capable of doing. And so in this society, can one person really fully rely on, my husband works or my wife works and I stay at home? That's fine. Yes, that model works. But it's definitely nice to have a plan B. Like, what happens if something happens and your spouse, who's the full-time worker, they can't work anymore for some reason, for some physical reason, mental reason, whatever, they can't work anymore. Can the other spouse then pivot and go out and earn that wage? Absolutely, that's possible, but it's just nice to know that you have options.
Absolutely. So thank you all for tuning in to Before I Do this evening. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Download the Couples Academy app and join us next week as we focus on keystone relationships. For those of you who may be tuning into this and like, wow, that cornerstone relationship conversation sounds like it's pretty interesting, be sure to go into the archive and check out the cornerstone episode, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Once again, enjoy International Women's Day, and we'll see y'all next week on Before I Do. Good night, everybody.
Good night.